Part 4. Exception Clauses. The Apostle Paul and his epistles. What about Paul? Well, first of all, does Paul trump Yahshua or Jesus? And if Yahshua gave none, then would Paul? 1 Corinthians 7 verse 10. But to the married, Paul writes, I give instructions, not I but the Lord, that the wife should not leave her husband. And verse 11, but if she does leave, she must remain unmarried, or else be reconciled to her husband. And that the husband should not divorce his wife. He did not give the wife, in verse 11, grounds to divorce and go out and get remarried. Verses 12 through 14. Very interesting. But to the rest I say, not the Lord, that if any brother has a wife who is an unbeliever, and she consents to live with him, he must not divorce her. And a woman who has an unbelieving husband, and he consents to live with her, she must not send her husband away. And then look at this. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified through his wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified through her believing husband. I don't understand all that, but that's what it says. For otherwise your children are unclean, but now they are holy. And that relates us back to Malachi 2 verse 15 that we looked at earlier. Sanctification. Hebrews 12:14. Pursue peace with all men, and the sanctification without which no one will see the Lord, or see Yahshua. That's interesting. What's the implication? If we are sanctified, we will see him, and if not, we'll not see him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified through his wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified through her believing husband. Powerful. Verse 15. Yet if the unbelieving one leaves, let him leave. And a lot of folks say, okay, here's my exception clause. The brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases. But Yahweh has called us to peace. For how do you know, O wife, whether you will save your husband? Or how do you know, O husband, whether you will save your wife? Only as Yahweh or the Lord has assigned to each one, as Yahweh has called each in this manner, let him walk. And so I direct in all the churches. Now, what are your work assignments for now and for future ages or eons of time? Take a look at my presentations, videos, YouTubes entitled What Shall We Be? A part 3 YouTube presentation for the foundation there. Now let's go back to this passage. What do you know, O wife, whether you will save your husband, and O husband, whether or not you will save your wife? This passage about salvation having to do with the salvation of our spouse is stuck immediately between, immediately following the passage about the brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, and the prior verses about how there's sanctification through the spouse. These passages are talking about salvation, and if the unbeliever leaves, the brother or sister is not under bondage to bring that unbeliever to Yahshua in such cases. He's not talking about not under bondage to not stay in the marriage, but he's talking about being relieved from the responsibility of bringing them to Yahshua for salvation. Let's continue in verse 39 of chapter 7 of 1 Corinthians. A wife is bound as long as her husband lives. But if her husband is dead, she is free to be married to whom she wishes, only in the Lord. Is bound, there's that word again, as long as her husband lives, and he didn't say, or until the husband divorces, or she divorces the husband. We can see confirmation of that in Romans chapter 7, verses 1 through 3. Or do you not know, brethren, for I am speaking to those who know the law, the Torah, that the law has jurisdiction over a person as long as he lives? For the married woman is bound by law to her husband while he is living. But if her husband dies, she is released from the law concerning the husband. So then if while her husband is living, she is joined to another man, and he doesn't give any exception clauses, she shall be called an adulteress because she has that multiplied semen within her body. But if her husband dies, she is free from the law, so that she is not an adulteress, though she be joined to another man. What does he not say? But if your husband or wife is unfaithful, unsupportive, an unbeliever, reverts to paganism, no, he didn't say that. And I, Paul, am speaking to those who should know the Torah, should know the law. Now, as we move into part 5, let's consider just how serious this matter is.